Welcome to Stories Pulse, the place where mind-blowing stories unfold and you can't look away. If you love jaw-dropping twists, dramatic moments, and stories that'll make you think twice about the world around you, then you are in the right spot. Before we dive into the shocking details of this story, do me a big favor. Hit that subscribe button, smash the bell icon so you never miss a crazy tale, and give this video a like if you're ready for some heart-racing drama. Oh, and don't forget to comment below and tell me what you think. Who do you think took the biggest risk in this story? I'm dying to know your thoughts. Let's make this video go viral. Share it with your friends so they can join in on the fun too. All right, enough talk. Let's get into the story. A millionaire took his receptionist to a gala dinner, and what she did shocked everyone. Before we start the story, comment below which city you're watching from. Enjoy the story. James Cooper, CEO of Cooper International, was about to face one of the most important nights of his career. The multinational, valued in billions, was sinking in scandals about abusive working conditions and unethical practices. Investors were fleeing, and the press wouldn't stop exposing his lack of empathy. That night's gala dinner was his only chance to save the company. He needed to convince key investors to believe in his leadership again, and for that, every detail had to be impeccable. Mr. Cooper, Greg, his assistant, interrupted his thoughts. "We have a problem. Megan canceled." James looked up from his computer. "What do you mean she canceled?" "Family emergency. She's not going to the dinner." James felt the blood rush to his head. Megan was his ideal choice. Charming, experienced, someone who conveyed the image of success he needed. "What do you suggest, Greg?" "We don't have time to find someone else." Greg hesitated before suggesting, "Maybe someone from the team." James scoffed. The idea seemed absurd. But with the clock ticking, he looked out the window. In the lobby, he saw Emma Taylor, the receptionist. She was talking to a delivery person, organizing packages with a firm but calm posture. Something about her caught his attention. Simplicity, discreet elegance. She could be useful. "Bring her here now." A few minutes later, Emma walked into the office, trying to hide her nervousness. She had never spoken directly to the CEO before. "Mr. Cooper," she said politely but cautiously. James observed her for a moment, as if evaluating a product. "I need you to accompany me to a gala dinner tonight. It's an important event for investors. Your only job will be to smile, be polite, and above all, not say anything unnecessary. Understood?" Emma was surprised. The proposal seemed more like an order. She wasn't paid for this, but she knew it could be an opportunity. "Yes, sir," she replied firmly, even though she didn't know what she was getting into. James nodded to Greg, ending the conversation. "Make sure she looks presentable. Something sophisticated. We meet at 7 p.m. Don't be late." At 7 p.m., Emma was ready. She wore an elegant dark blue dress that accentuated her confident posture, though she still felt out of place. James, waiting impatiently in the car, nodded in approval when he saw her. "You learned to follow orders quickly. Let's go." On the way, the silence was heavy. Emma tried to understand why she had been chosen, while James mentally reviewed the points he needed to present to the investors. Upon arriving at the luxurious hotel, James turned to Emma before entering. "Remember, discreet and professional. Nothing more." Emma didn't respond, but inside she knew this was her chance to prove she was more than just a receptionist. As they walked through the illuminated doors, Emma felt the eyes of dozens of investors on her. She knew that night would be a turning point for James, for Cooper International, and most importantly, for herself. The halls of the Grand Plaza Hotel were filled with luxury. Sparkling chandeliers illuminated the guests, their dresses and impeccable suits exuding power and influence. Upon entering, James Cooper projected his typical cold confidence, while Emma Taylor, though visibly nervous, held her head high with impeccable posture. As they crossed the doors, curious eyes fell on them. Who was the woman beside the powerful CEO? Many assumed she was a hired companion. Emma noticed the silent judgment, but chose to ignore it. "Don't leave my side," James murmured, not even looking at her. Soon a group of influential investors approached, led by Oliver Hayes, a magnate known for his critical stance and progressive vision. James greeted him with a firm handshake, but Oliver gave a curious look at Emma. "And who might this young lady be?" Oliver asked, smiling politely but with a tone. "Don't leave my side," James murmured, not even looking at her. "Of course, sir," Emma replied, keeping a professional tone, though her determination was growing. Soon, a group of influential investors approached, led by Oliver Hayes, a magnate known for his critical stance and progressive vision. James greeted him with a firm handshake, but Oliver gave a curious look at Emma. "And who might this young lady be?" Oliver asked, smiling politely, but with a tone of curiosity. Before James could intervene, Emma confidently replied, "Emma Taylor. I work at Cooper International." James frowned but remained silent. "Interesting." Oliver seemed genuinely intrigued. "And what do you think of the current situation of the company?" Emma felt the weight of the question. It was the kind of question that could be a trap, but she realized it was also an opportunity. "I believe every company faces challenges," she began, choosing her words carefully. "But I see potential for real changes, especially when the focus includes human impact." The group was silent for a moment, surprised by her response. James pursed his lips, visibly uncomfortable. As the night progressed, the investors began discussing social responsibility practices. James, true to his calculated approach, spoke in terms of profits and numbers. But Oliver, clearly dissatisfied, turned to Emma again. "Miss Taylor, since you work at the company, what's your opinion on how we can regain public trust?" Emma noticed James's discomfort. She knew answering could upset him, but she also knew this was her chance to regain trust. "It takes more than marketing strategies," Emma said, looking directly at Oliver. "It's necessary to listen to people, employees, and customers. Understand their stories, invest in actions that go beyond numbers. This not only improves reputation, but creates a genuine connection with the public." The silence that followed was broken by a short laugh from Oliver. Finally, someone with an interesting perspective. The other investors began murmuring among themselves, seemingly in agreement. James, now clearly irritated, tried to regain control of the conversation. "Emma isn't familiar with the challenges of large-scale leadership. Of course, she's here just to observe." Oliver smiled but didn't back down. "Sometimes an outside perspective is exactly what we need." By the end of the dinner, Emma had captured everyone's attention. Several investors spoke with her, praising her clarity and courage. James, however, barely exchanged words with her. On the way back to the car, when they finally got in the vehicle, he broke the silence. "You completely ignored my instructions, Emma." Emma turned to him, remaining calm. "I just answered questions. I didn't do anything wrong." James gripped the steering wheel, visibly frustrated. "You drew unnecessary attention. That's not acceptable." She didn't respond, but inside she knew she had crossed lines. However, she also knew she had impressed the right people. Emma looked out the window as the car crossed the lit city. Something inside her told her that night would change everything, for better or worse. The next morning, the atmosphere at Cooper International's office was more tense than ever. Emma arrived punctually, but the buzz in the corridors indicated that the conversations at the previous night's dinner had spread. Some people looked at her with curiosity, others with approving smiles. But Emma knew the only opinion that really mattered at that moment was James Cooper's. At 9 a.m., a message arrived on her computer. "Emma, in my office now." James. She took a deep breath before standing up and walking to the CEO's office. The door was slightly ajar, and James stood looking out the window, hands in his pockets. His tone was cold and direct as she entered. "Sit down," Emma complied, remaining calm. "You disobeyed my orders last night, Emma. I told you to be discreet. Not only did you ignore that, but you also became the center of attention." She frowned but responded firmly. "I answered the questions I was asked." "I did nothing wrong, Mr. Cooper." He turned to face her, his expression impassive. "It's not your place to decide what is or isn't wrong in this context. Your job was to accompany me, not to share your opinions." Emma felt anger bubbling up but held it back. If my answers helped improve the company's image with the investors, then I played a positive role. James tapped the desk lightly, signaling the end of the conversation. "You don't get it. I can't afford more distractions. You're fired." The word hit like a bomb. Even though Emma had anticipated this, Hearing it still stung. But instead of protesting, she stood up, maintaining her composure. Understood. Her voice was calm, but her eyes conveyed the strength of someone not easily defeated. Without another word, Emma left the office. That afternoon, while packing her things, Emma's phone rang. She almost ignored it, but seeing the unknown number, she answered. Miss Taylor, this is Oliver Hayes. Could we meet for coffee? There's something I'd like to discuss with you. Oliver was one of the investors she had spoken with the previous night. Intrigued, Emma agreed, and an hour later, they were seated in a nearby cafe. I'll get straight to the point, Emma, Oliver began, crossing his arms. Cooper International needs new leadership, especially in its European division. I was impressed with what you said last night and believe you have the right profile for a significant role there. Emma blinked in surprise. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you the position of CEO of the European division. The board will need to approve it, but I trust that will just be a formality. She hesitated for a moment. The offer was grand, almost unbelievable. But after being underestimated for so long, the chance to lead something impactful was irresistible. I accept, she said with determination. 2 days later, James Cooper received news that infuriated him. Oliver Hayes had nominated Emma Taylor as CEO of the European division, and the board had quickly approved it. This meant that, although technically subordinate to the general board, Emma now held an equal level of influence over corporate decisions. When James learned he would have to attend a meeting led by Emma to align the new directives between divisions, his irritation was palpable. He knew he would have to deal with her again, but this time, in a position of power equal to his. The meeting was set at Cooper International's headquarters. Emma arrived with renewed confidence. She was dressed elegantly and carried organized documents for the presentation. Upon entering the conference room, she found James already seated, surrounded by other executives. Miss Taylor, he said with a forced smile, or should I say, CEO Taylor. Just Emma is fine, Mr. Cooper, she replied coolly before starting her presentation. During the meeting, Emma demonstrated clarity and leadership, outlining plans to implement more ethical and transparent practices. Some executives supported her ideas, while others aligned with James, showing resistance. At the end of the meeting, James approached her privately. Impressive presentation, he said, his tone dripping with irony. But I hope you realize it won't be easy to implement these ideas in practice. Emma didn't back down. I never expected it to be easy, but I know how to deal with obstacles, Mr. Cooper. The two stared at each other for a moment. The air was charged with tension. It was clear that neither was willing to yield, but both felt a strange mix of respect and provocation. As Emma left the room, James realized that dealing with her would be much more complicated than he had anticipated. But at the same time, he couldn't shake the determination in her eyes from his mind. Emma Taylor knew that taking on the role of CEO of Cooper International's European division was just the beginning of a bigger challenge. She was aware that James Cooper wouldn't make her journey easy and that internal resistance would be constant. But her determination to bring about change and prove her worth was stronger than any obstacle. On the other hand, James closely watched Emma's moves. He couldn't decide if he admired her courage or saw her as a direct threat to his authority. A confrontation between the two seemed inevitable. A week after the introductory meeting, Emma called for a new video conference with the division executives, including James. The goal was to discuss the plan to align all units with a new corporate conduct code focused on social responsibility and transparency. True to his style, James joined the meeting late, adjusting his tie as if the delay were intentional. As he sat down, Emma began her presentation, explaining how the new code would be implemented. This will require significant changes in the division's culture, but I believe it's essential to regain public trust and increase our talent retention, Emma said calmly. James crossed his arms, waiting for his turn to speak.